This is Zach. Thank you for tuning into my channel. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment. Promise I'm going to be doing a lot better on responding back to my comments. Hit my Cash App. Let me know you appreciate me. I want to say thank you to all that have been donating to me. I appreciate it. Using it to get my life back together and come out with more content, get some interviews going so I can get my channel going. And I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Today, so I kind of spoke with Winter's mom, my girl that helped me through all this hustle, the one that got arrested with me federally. And she reminded me of some moments that we had starting this off at the beginning from when we met all the way up to when we went to jail, which I was gone for 14 years. She was gone for about 6. So I just thought in respect, I would cover some of those moments because some of them were pretty funny because she had the type of personality where she could actually disarm people and make you remove any questionable doubt you might have that you might be getting scammed. Like, she was an excellent conversationalist. She could ask you a question like in the moments of intensity where a person's kind of like, hey, that's kind of strange. And she would divert their attention from, well, it's strange, but I'll go ahead and cover it for you and get you worked out. Those type of moments have always been, to us, they're hilarious. Because personally, her and I together have some hilarious moments. Because just to give you an example, one time we're driving around and we're on our scheme where we're stealing mail out of mailboxes. This is where we were going around and they were passing out convenience checks. This was a scheme where we would put the check into the bank and it would clear at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it would have a hold on it at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so between 2 and 4, we would actually go and withdraw the money from the 24-hour post office. And I'm going to talk more about checks in the podcast. I'm going to put that separate so you guys understand like every little detail of what we're doing. What we were doing, not doing now, but what we were doing. All right, so while we were out scoping, trying to get more checks, which we drive to areas where the houses were huge, worth $500,000, $1 million, and we were stealing mail out of their boxes. This is in the middle of the day. We didn't always go at night. We always went in the middle of the day when we saw nobody on the street and stealing mail. Well, obviously, I grabbed the mail out of a mailbox. We're driving around. We're bored for some reason. This is in Georgia, in an area called Vinings, Georgia. And we grabbed the mail out of a mailbox, and I'm driving around. I'm grabbing the mail out of another box. Then all of a sudden, a car gets behind me. And so he's pulling pretty close, so I try to pull over for him to go past because he's kind of aggressively following me. So when I pull over, he pulls over. Then he starts hitting the horn. And we're like, oh, crap. He goes, he must have seen us getting mail out of a box. So I start driving off. Well, the car is following me the whole time. So I'm driving around, I'm turning corners here. I'm pulling in this housing development, I'm going out. So as I'm driving, I'm coming up to a light that's yellow. Because meanwhile, while I'm following him, I might stop at a stop sign to see what's going on. He'd hit the horn, then I'd pull out, I'd drive somewhere else. I'm pulling up on a light that's yellow, and it actually turns red before I get up to it. So I'm actually about to stop the car. And she, who's on the phone the whole time talking, because, you know, for us, the scam never stops. So she's on the phone, and she's actually ordering something with a credit card that we might have found in a mailbox. She's on the phone ordering and talking as I'm trying to get away from this idiot that's following us. So as I'm stopping at the red light, she's on the phone and she says, excuse me, can you hold on for just 1 second? And she comes to the phone and says, you better run that shit. And then she gets back on the phone, yes, I'm here. Because I was going to stop. And she's kind of like, what are you doing? You better run this friggin' light and get the hell out of here. So when I actually run the light, the car ends up stopping at the light. We jump on the highway, go back to the rental car company, as I told you before, and we just trade out the car. Like, we call and say, hey, the brakes are acting funny. They say, well, come on back in and get another car. So we go back into the rental car company, pick up another vehicle, and go back out and steal mail out of mailboxes. It's just one, of course, we were relentless. We were relentless. It's just one of those incidents where, as I said, she was very disarming, or she was very talented and charming enough to get us past the situation. She saved me or saved us in a whole lot of situations. There was one time when we were getting instant credit, right? And I had an ID on me, right, for the person for instant credit. We were getting furniture. That's what it was. We were buying furniture, and I wanted to get approved for credit. So I had the ID of Mr. A, right? And so Mr. A got approved for like 10 or 8 grand worth of credit. So we were buying furniture to actually put in a house that we had. So when we bought the furniture, it actually came out to about $400 more than what the credit was. So if we got approved for $5,000 or $9,000, it came out to $9,400. So what we had decided was, well, we'll pay for it. You guys take credit cards or debit cards? They're like, yeah, we'll take a debit card. I said, okay, no problem. So this is kind of funny to me. So we make that agreement. We're going through the paperwork. She's charming and talking to them the whole time we're standing there. So when he gives me the ID for Mr. A, he says, do you have your debit? No, I give him my ID for Mr. A, and he processes it, puts the information in, and he goes, here you go. Okay, it's $400. Are you paying with a debit card? I said, yes, I'm paying with a debit card. And when I pull out the debit card, I actually take a look at the debit card, and the name on the debit card is Mr. B. It was a different debit card, a different identity that I had been using. I actually didn't even have a debit card in Mr. A's name. I just grabbed it to get the credit, and I only had a debit card in Mr. B's name, who I was walking around as my real identity. So as I'm standing there, he's looking at me like, are you going to hand me the debit card? He has my ID in one hand, looking at me like, are you going to hand me that debit card or not so I can give you this $400? And she's talking. So she looks at me and sees a look on my face like, oh my God, if I give him this debit card with this name on it, and he looks and sees this other name on it, he might get a little suspicious. So I'm standing, I'm looking crazy like, yeah, I'm gonna give you the debit card. And she looks at me, and then she looks at him with the ID, and she grabs the ID out of his hand and puts it in her purse. And once she does that, then I hand him the debit card. He takes the debit card and goes ahead and swipes it, takes the $400, and we agree to leave. Kind of like getting me out of a moment of uncertainty. That kind of happens. Any criminal will tell you, you come to this moment of uncertainty when maybe, I would say, the rubber's hitting the road, when it's going down and you're in the middle of the hustle, and the right answer, the right move or the right answer gets you all the way through, and the wrong move and the wrong answer gets you all the way messed up, and maybe they call the police. And there's been a couple of times when that situation arises, she's had the right move and the right answer. But she was absolutely awesome in disarming people, meaning she would make people feel so very comfortable that they would do anything for her. So during our hustle, when we were paying bills, or as I mentioned before, we were using other people's credit cards to pay their electric bill, their phone bill, and other things like that, we found out that if you call into Home Depot, right, because we talked to a contractor that approached us and said, listen, many times people call into Home Depot, contractors do, and order a pallet supply of different products and pay over the phone with a charge card, right? He told us, if you would do that for me, I'll give you half the value of the pallet. We're like, are you kidding? He's like, no, I'm not kidding. So as a contractor, he would give us a list of supplies that he needed on a pallet, right? We were to call it in the Home Depot, give them the charge card number, and then he would pull into that Home Depot and pick up the supplies. Now, he was an awesome customer for us. We loved it. So, of course, my girl would be the one to call in because I'm the driver. I drove. I didn't have time to read the card and drive. She would, in the passenger seat, she would actually call and drive. So we hit this one Home Depot multiple times because she became so cool with the guy that was on the phone. So I think she told him her name was Valerie. So it got to the point where she'd call up and he'd go, Valerie, and she'd go, Mark, how you doing? And they'd be screaming. They would be so excited to hear from each other. Meanwhile, she would be placing orders for about $1,400 worth of supplies that she had hit him up in the last 3 weeks about 9 or 10 times. Like, she probably cost that guy his job, but he was so excited to give her the product. She used about 3 or 4 different credit cards. This guy would pull in there every time. Matter of fact, one time she called and they told her, Miss Valerie, you actually had some of your charge cards charged back. We need you to come by the store. She's like, oh, talk to you later. It wasn't even the same guy. So we made the assumption that maybe as she disarmed him, he was actually fired from his job because he was giving her tons of product. He was actually trying to upsell her on different things. Like, did you want a refrigerator? You know, we have a sale on washers and dryers, everything just upsell. And she would take it, put it on a charge card, and we drive out of there with it. It was amazing. It was amazing. It's just the fact that she could actually pull things like that off used to impress me like you wouldn't believe. Another way she would help out is she was great whenever we were using the front and back of the debit of the credit cards with the ID to check in the hotels. She would absolutely disarm those people at the Hyatt. Matter of fact, I remember one time, and this was a Hyatt that we got busted at. Before we got busted, one time we came down there and we were about to check in, and the girl, she had broken them down so much, the girl said, hey, your charge card actually got declined. And she's like, what? She goes, your charge card actually got declined. And I said, oh, then let me call the office. Let me call my secretary at the office, right? And let my secretary know that my charge card got declined, right? And like, I'm talking to her on the phone. I'm talking to this woman and I'm looking at my girl and she's looking at me. And I said, yes, the charge card got declined. I'm going to call the office and see if the secretary, Miss Valerie, can put another card on this account for me, right? I'm looking at her and she's like, oh, you're going to call Valerie and see if she can put it on. Okay, so she goes, well, excuse me, I'm going to go to the bathroom while you're doing all that. And as soon as she walks off, I dial her cell phone number and call her on the phone. Well, she steps around to the bathroom, talks to the woman on the phone, goes through a phone where we have different card numbers, gives the woman a completely different card number, right? For us, the woman runs the card and the card clears. So she goes, okay, the card is clear. I said, okay, thank you, Valerie. That card number did clear, no problem. And I hang up and I sign all the paperwork and she comes back in like, honey, did everything go okay? I said, yes, it did, as a matter of fact. Here's our key, we're going up to our room. And we go up to the room and we bust out laughing. What was one of the amazing things is in that situation, like we had the best nonverbal communication you would ever want to know. We could actually look at each other and it's like, even if one of us knew what we were thinking, one of us had a thought of the scam, the other one would look and we'd search each other's eyes until they're like, oh, I got you. Once we made the contact, we kind of, stared and then we went to action on that. Or we would give an agreement or yes or no. They'd ask a question and we'd kind of look at each other with eyes wide open. And then the nonverbal communication would go on. And then we turn back and then address whoever was in the room. That happened to us the one time, and I'll never forget it. I thought it was hilarious. We were staying in different hotels saying to ourselves, we need to get us an apartment or somewhere to live. So we called this Asian woman about a townhouse she had for rent. So when we met her at the townhouse, we looked at it. The Asian lady was talking, saying, I like it. And she's asking me the whole time, like, who are we going to use? Whose identity we use? Who do you think can pass? I don't know. I don't know who we're going to use. I think we could use A or B. No, I think C. Wait, I don't know, A or B. And, oh, yes, this is a nice kitchen. Yes. Lovely garage. We love this place. It's great. We're thinking about getting it. Yeah. I go, well, what does our credit have to be in order for us to qualify for the house? Well, the lady said to us, she's like, well, if you have 2 months rent, it really wouldn't matter whose credit you'd run. If you could just pay us 2 months rent, which is about $1,400, right? So when she said that, we kind of looked at each other like nonverbal communication of, is she effing kidding me? So then we look back and goes, as a matter of fact, we do have $1,400. We'd like to move in right now. So we pay her the money. We go get the money order, sign the lease. I don't even remember, we didn't even put a strategy to who we put down. We just put whatever down because she didn't run the credit. I guess she just wanted a renter. And we signed it and we moved in that very day. It's one of those situations where it just, both of us at the right time and the chemistry and the luck just brought that together to work for us. Now, one of our most treasured story was absolutely the time that we almost got busted staying at a hotel in Sarasota, Florida. Now, what had happened was we had come down to see my parents and her parents, and we stayed at a hotel in Sarasota. I think we had just dropped our daughter off. She was an infant. And we stayed at a hotel in Sarasota under a name and a charge card that we actually had possession of. We had taken someone's identity and actually ordered a card and got the card delivered. And when we got the card delivered, we used that delivered card to stay at the hotel. But we still did it where we showed the front and back and the ID. We just, since that's how we always stayed at the hotel, that's how we did it anyway. So by using that card, we stayed there. While we were there, we went out one day to do something. We were gone most of the day, hanging out, probably eating and chilling. We didn't come back till about 6 or 7 o'clock. We came back to the hotel. So when we came back to the hotel, we put our key card in and the door doesn't open. We put our key card in again and the door doesn't open. I'm like, what the heck's going on? So then we call the front desk and we say, hey, we put our key card in the room. The door's not opening. What's going on? And they're like, can you come to the front desk? They go, are you here? Where are you? We're like, no, we were there, as we're leaving, because we don't know what the heck's going on. We're like, what's going on? They go, there's a problem with the billing. The credit card you gave us to bill, it came back and we're not allowed to bill anymore. We have a billing problem. I'm like, oh, okay. So I said, well, how much is our bill? They said it's almost $1,000. I said, no problem. So we jump in our car because we leave because we didn't know what the heck was going on. So we decide, okay, really what we thought of as we're looking at each other, we're like, okay, let's just pay them and get our stuff out of that room and maybe head back to Georgia where we were living. So we run to the ATM machine, withdraw $1,000 in cash. So we decide, okay, look, both of us are not going to go in there. So I said, I'm going to go in. She goes, no, I'll go in. So she goes in to the hotel. She's going to pay him, get the room key. I'll meet her upstairs in the room. We unpack our stuff and we get out of there. That was our entire plan. So she goes in. I actually pull around, drop her off. She gets out and she goes in the hotel. As she goes in, I pull out because I don't want anybody that sees her get out. I don't want them to identify a car. So I pull out, park a little bit up the street where I'm facing the hotel. I told her this hotel has a front door and it has a back where the pool is. I said, if something happens, just head out the back. Don't come out the front. Actually, I don't think I even told her. I told her that when I called her. Because when I pulled around the front, I'm sitting there parked waiting for her to call me, right? And all of a sudden, the sheriff, one of the sheriff cars pulls in. When he pulls in, he jumps out like, what's going on? What's going on? And the guy runs out and he's telling him like inside, somebody's inside. So when I see all that, I pick up the phone and I call her. She answers the phone and I say, get out of there, go out the back. There's a sheriff coming in. I'm going to pick you up in the back. So then I pull the car around and go to the back. Now she tells me that while she's there, she pays the guy the money for the room. He gets her a receipt. She said he's moving kind of slow and she's going, look, just reactivate the key and let me get my stuff out of the room. And she's like, okay, he goes, I got you. But he's moving slow. He never gave her a receipt. He's like, well, let me get you a receipt printed out. Let me get everything together. So she's standing there. She said, when I call, he's talking to her. He's like, well, listen, we had some problem. Blah. He's talking to her. And she says, excuse me 1 second. I got to take this call. So she answers the phone and I tell her to get out, go out the back. The sheriff is coming in. She says she doesn't even look back. She goes straight out the back door. I take the car, pull around the back, pull up as close as I could to the back door. She runs out of the back door, jumps in the car, and then we pull out of the back way of the hotel. When we pull out, we're going up the street. 3 police cars are coming from the other way. We see them going in, and we're actually driving. Luckily, this is Sarasota, and the hotel was close to the airport, because we took our car right back to the airport, exchanged it for another car, just gave them some fake excuses, problem with the brakes. They gave us a new car, and now we're driving around in a completely different vehicle. But as we're driving, we see the police zigzagging everywhere. What we do out of panic is we actually pull into a different hotel, and we check into that hotel and decide to stay there for the night. We actually get out one at a time. Like, I get out and I go in the hotel, and she drives around, and then later she parks the car and she comes up and gets in the hotel. That's how afraid we were of getting arrested. But it had been kind of Bonnie and Clyde like that for us for about the whole 5 or 6 years that we were running around together, committing all these offenses. For us, what's so sad is for us, it was a ton of fun. There was a lot of excitement and days going on of us, unfortunately, using other people's credits ill-advisedly and stealing money. But it felt like a good time. It's like a game. It felt like a game to us that we were playing. And it didn't feel like it was real or that we were hurting people. And it made a bond between us that is kind of hard to separate, because for us, it was enjoyable. It was fun. It was exhilarating, riveting, stealing. Because I told you about some of the unsuccess and success, but every time we had success, that was exhilarating. It was a ton of fun. We had a ton of laughter. Dealing with all we had to deal with, we laughed all the time. Meeting some of the people that we met, it was cool people, it was uncool people. Some people stole stuff from us. I mean, it was a lot of different situations that we had to deal with, and we dealt with it together, and it was kind of a good teamwork. But it was definitely, I hate to say fun, but it was fun. I appreciate everything that happened. And like I said, our nonverbal communication was kind of off the charts. Awesome. So thank you guys for tuning in. This was kind of a short podcast. And I wanted to give an update and a shout out to my partner that helped me commit the crimes. And I want to give a shout out to you guys for tuning into my podcast. Do me a favor, hit the subscription button, hit the like button for me, and hit the Cash App and let me know you appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and there's more coming. There's more coming.